Hello and welcome back to Together We F.E.E.L today. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Melissa Crook, your host. I've got my friends Kim Mosman and Marissa Zuito here today with me, and we are going to be having a conversation, honest conversations on parenthood, ladies. We're going to talk about all things parenthood, the blessings, the challenges, the surprises, what we wish we'd known, what we know now, and I think giving ourselves grace in the process. I'm really working on right now embracing the layers of myself that parented well and missed the mark. Because I've got 3 adult children now and we have adult conversations. So I'm learning how to parent them as adults, but I'm also realizing there's, through communication with them and through just the realization of my own journey of like, oh man, if I would have known that 15, 20 years ago, I could have really parented them in a healthier way through this. And releasing that, oh man, and just being like, I take accountability for the things I missed the mark on. I give myself credit for the things I figured out, despite the fact that my examples were not what I wanted to be as, in my own parents. And just knowing that moving forward, how can I be the best parent today to them where they are and honoring them in that. And I think we all too, as parents, there's all these expectations prior to, and then the babies land in your lap and then you take them home. And then there's this whole realization of how many of the things that they hit the mark on with what they told you, and then for me more so, and I think some of us, how many things were missed on the mark. Like I had my babies in the 90s. And What to Expect When You're Expecting was great when I was pregnant, saved me from calling the doctor every day. What to Expect in the first year didn't come out to like my 3rd child. And I think that I think a lot of grace and understanding in that piece, but also the different seasons and really dismantling as things come up. Children have a funny way of, as they hit different seasons, things come up in you that you didn't know were an issue or a trigger or something that you've never had to deal with before. And they hit a certain age, they say a certain thing, and you maybe respond in a way you wish you hadn't have. I'm like, ooh, there might be something to unpack there. Where did that come from? So we're going to talk about all that today. So let's start with Kim. Tell me why you wanted to be part of this conversation.
Well, I love being a parent. That's like my number one accomplishment. And it truly was my number one goal in life, is to have kids. I have to tell you, I loved every minute of it. But now my boys are parents, and being a grandmother and watching them has revealed so much in me that, one, I wish I'd done, and two, what I did well. I mean, just watching the way they interact and kind of mimic some of the things. I mean, we learn by watching, right? And
Yeah.
it's just fascinating watching your babies have babies. And so
Yeah.
I'm just excited to just chat with you and Marissa. And I think we're all a little bit the same, but sometimes when we're especially new parents, we feel so isolated and like we're the only ones
Yeah.
experiencing these problems or whatever. So I'm just looking forward to talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. All right, Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm the voice of permission and honesty. I similar to Kim, like when I was pregnant, I'm like, I'm excited, and then when it happened, I'm like, I don't love this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the counterpart to Kim, and just to give permission and that voice. Any parents out there that are, not, the common theme is I love my kid or kids, but this whole parenting thing, not so much. And it's changed for me over the years, but definitely in the early stages, I just like, I don't love this. And it was hard. It was so hard.
Yeah.
And then I kind of bust some myths around the idea that that's a mental illness. And so I'm a licensed therapist, so I can speak to that a lot maybe. And
Yeah.
just it's it's okay. It's okay to say I don't love this, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have postpartum depression, or yeah. So
Yeah.
I just thought it'd be fun to jump on and give voice to that other side.
Yeah, I love that because you give voice to a broader conversation that we need to be having of let's not pigeonhole these things. And I think too, we bring in a good diversity of we all had kids at a little different stage. Kim, you were early 20s, correct? When you had your first one?
Yes.
I was mid to late 20s. Marissa, you were mid 30s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
36,
So we all kind of hit it at a different season, which then impacted where we were in our lives, in our careers. And that also has an impact of when your child comes in and how that feels when you're making those transitions and changes. For me, I think it's important to say, I didn't love the baby stage. Like the baby stage was like, okay, I'm tired. We're nursing again. Oh, okay. Here I go pumping again. When they got to the point where they could speak and put on their, start picking out their outfits, when they got to 2, 3, I'm like, okay, this is fun now. We're having some engagement. I'm seeing personalities. My husband loves the babies. Like he loved all stages. Like this man is like beaten down the door waiting to be a grandfather, like so excited, but also like loves babies. Like for him, it's very therapeutic to hold a baby. So we had a really good balance because he just wanted to hold the babies all the time. Although I had to like put the baby down so she learns how to sleep in her crib, please. Because when you're at work and I need, I was home for, 12 weeks with each of mine. I was like, they need to learn how to sleep here so I can take a shower. But, so also too, like those balances of, I felt really bad about the fact that I didn't love the baby stage. Like there was something wrong with me. And I was able to actually help a friend later on. She didn't have kids until I think she had her first one about a year or two after I had my third. So I'd had all 3 by the time she had her first. And she and I grew up together. And so I was just like, it's okay. It's okay that you feel this way. And so I think too, talking about, all those things openly and honestly, and Marissa, I extended that because I think we just opening that door to those frank conversations about, it doesn't mean we don't love the kids.
Yep.
The seasons can still be hard. So going into that, Kim, tell me about what it was like for you to become a parent, like the biggest, like I would say, surprise in it.
The biggest surprise was really how hard it was. You can read all the books and, my pregnancies, both of them were great. Who knew that morning sickness was, for me, a 24-hour thing and how awful I was going to feel. But then the day that the cloud cleared, and suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, look at what my body can do. So for me, I guess I just thought bringing him home would be the same. No one, and I had, I brought, my oldest son is 35 and almost 36. And so, that many years ago, there was an internet. I couldn't Google, is this normal? Is he really like, okay, so he just finished nursing and an hour and a half later, we're like, I can't satisfy him again. You couldn't ask. And you ask the doctor and the doctor's like, oh, just do what the baby wants, baby led. Well, baby led, I'm going to sit in a chair and nurse all day. Right. And so, it was surprising what I didn't know. But watching my daughter-in-laws, maybe it was good because my daughter-in-laws see these examples all the time, and then they have this sense of I'm not doing it right or I'm not good enough. So at least I didn't have that. I just had those moments of what the heck? No one told me this. But all good. Every phase goes away. But like you were talking, you didn't love the infant stage. My grandmother was the greatest godsend for me because she's like, you're going to want to cry. You're going to want to scream. You're going to want to do all these things. lay the baby down, go out, get yourself in a good place, because they're sponges and they pick up exactly what you're feeling inside. And it was the best advice I could have ever gotten. I let my
Yeah.
kiddos cry for moments so I could pull myself together and go back in and do what I had to do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, because they do sense your tension. And like, that
Mhm.
was one thing I had to really like, as I was figuring out nursing, I'm like, the baby's not going to be able to, connect with me if it senses my body being tense.
Mhm.
And so like learning to relax and give myself grace and be patient with myself in this, but also just when I was feeling tired and frustrated, I'm like, as long as she's safe, I can go in here, go to the bathroom, maybe even jump in a 3-minute shower. She's safe. She's fed. She's in a position where she's not going to choke. I mean, she's
Yeah.
right here outside the door, and I can do this. I'm going to feel a lot. I can take a breath and feel a lot more fresh. So yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
Rashonda, welcome to the conversation. It's so good to have you.
Hi, I was hoping you got my message yesterday.
Well, I've been back and forth. Yes, I saw that, and you had an appointment. I'm glad you could jump in. I'm glad you could join us. We got Rashonda Blackman here with us as she's joining us for this honest conversations on parenthood. Rashonda, I was just asking Kim and Marissa the biggest surprise to them. And Marissa will go next, and I'll let you think about it a minute, Rashonda, but I wanted to give you a chance to marinate on that while Marissa, we talked to you about the biggest surprise for you.
Oh gosh. I mean, I felt looking back, I think I was kind of ignorant. I just didn't know how hard it could be. It really threw me for a loop. And I also didn't bond with my daughter, and I know now that's common, but I didn't know. I figured something was wrong with me. And I think that there has to be a balance between it being hard. Oh, in fact, there's that saying, right? The hardest job you'll ever love. But I didn't love it. So then what am I left with? The hardest job, and you're kind of stuck. And so I think like the oxytocin is there for a reason, but I'm not sure I had enough of it. I joke that I didn't get enough or any. So surprise isn't the right word. Like shock, absolute shock. And I kept waiting and hoping it's going to get easier. And sure, it did get a little bit easier, but just I guess the shock is that. And this is what I tell my new moms too, or even if I get a chance to meet them in pregnancy, like it might really, really suck for a certain length of time. And there is support available, and we can brainstorm and we can get you help. But I wish I'd known that. And I know that sounds funny, but I was blissfully ignorant. I had no idea. I had never really been around babies. That should have been a clue. I don't know. So it was a shock of guess what Kim is saying, that it's hard, but I guess the truth is I didn't realize how unenjoyable it would be, and I think we have babies for a reason, because it's valuable and rewarding. And if I'm really being honest, it just didn't feel that way to me. I'm glad. I have no regrets. I'm glad I have my daughter, but I have one for a reason.
Yeah. But I think there's something important to say here is taking the shame and stigma, because part of the reason so many times we feel isolated in these things is because we're afraid to say out loud, this is hard. I didn't like today. This was miserable. I'm exhausted. Yeah. She won't stop crying. I mean, whatever it is, I need to run out of the house or I start screaming. And, those moments, because exhaustion happen and we're afraid. Everybody wants to, oh, you're shining so bright. Look at the bundle of joy. Yeah. And it's like, I'm waiting for the joy. This is not to paint a horrible picture. Like those moments exist, but it's also, we don't talk enough. If we could open the door to the honesty and get women resources when they're struggling so that they can start having bonding and communicative moments and connect moments. And I was hoping that there's a gal I had on earlier in the spring, Mariela de Santiago, and she is a mom that created a group for moms to come together and hang out and talk about the challenges and all these things. She's in San Diego. She started a podcast to talk about these things because she's like, no one's talking about all this stuff, that the reality of it every day, not just how cute they are and how many outfits you got, but how many times did they explode and you had to change them? I mean, how many times? I mean, how many outfits do you have to take when you go out the door? In all of that, but also, so I think just opening the door for the honest conversations so that people don't start feeling isolated and get down a road. Like they know right away, it'd be good to talk to some other moms and be in communication with them. And everybody feels safe being honest about this, because for some moms, it is blissful from the get-go. And that's okay too, but not defining that that's the expectation. I think we need to remove the word expectation and just allow it to be, and know that there's resources out there to support you for wherever you land in that space.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Rashonda, how about you?
I have a couple of things. And I won't say that they're surprises, but I think when my kids were born, both of them came here a little different. My daughter was 3 months early, and then my son came some other way. But I think for me, as a single mom, raising two kids, it was extremely hard. As Marissa said, I don't know her, she was a single mom, but it was hard. And when they got to one age, I think I felt like they got to one, I was hurrying up. Can you hurry up and get to 2? Can you hurry up and get to 4? Can you hurry up and get to 10? Because and I'm like, Marissa, I really didn't take out the time to really enjoy the moment with them. And I think now that they are older, they're almost 21 and 19, I go back and I miss those moments. I find myself thinking, man, I can't even remember when you were a baby, because I feel like I rushed so much of that just to get out of the chaos of the bottle feeding and the whining and and not knowing what to do, and really not having that type of community that I could surround myself with that could help. I didn't have that. And so it was like, I'm on my own. And so it was a struggle every day. So I didn't enjoy it. And I hate that now. I wish I had not the time to really embrace them and hold them just a little bit longer. And because you miss those moments and time does fly by, and you don't get that again. So, but I will say this, I did put something in the atmosphere when I was a young girl, not knowing when we start talking about generational things and we're putting things into the atmosphere, and then those things, I remember me and my cousin was playing one day. And this is because we saw our moms do it so well, and so we put in the atmosphere. I was like, we don't need a man. Just give us our baby. We can take care of our babies ourselves, and we're strong women and whatever, because that's how I seen my mom, not knowing the struggles that she went through, with me, and to grow up and to have that actually manifest and not have no one there. It was such a hard thing. And I think that's why I kind of rushed the moment. But so I won't say it was much of a surprise as much as it was a learning moment where I had to take a step back and be like, I shouldn't have said that. If I could do that over again, I would do that very differently.
Yeah. But I think you bring up a good point, Rashonda, because I think that in our moms' generations and grandmothers' generations, they didn't feel like they could talk about the hard stuff. They also were very isolated. They were also trying to meet a societal expectation of what they should be doing as moms and what they should be modeling for their kids. So there was no real honest conversations about all the truths that were happening within it. Yes, I love you. I fight for you. I work hard for you. I provide for you. And also this piece over here, and allowing you a window into that, because I think you can allow your kids a window into that without make them feeling bad about it. Like, I don't think, because I think we were afraid we didn't want our kids to feel bad, or our parents were afraid they didn't want their kids to feel bad, or it wasn't matching the Betty Crocker image that we saw on TV and all the perfect, moms that we saw in TV sitcoms or whatever. And so we didn't feel like we could share that, where it's like, this is going to be the greatest joy and greatest challenge and hardest thing and most difficult thing and most beautiful thing. It's the layers. It's the layers that I talk about. All of that's going to be true. And sometimes all in one day. and holding the nuance of that. And also then, I'm so glad you spoke to the single mom piece, Rashonda, because that's a whole other layer that go into place. But then there's also, I think, within that, I was very fortunate in that I have a very non-traditional husband, in that he grew up in a home where with his mom and dad, there were no boys do this, girls do this. Everybody learned all the things, all the chores. No one was treated differently based on whether they were a boy or a girl. So he was all in from day one on changing diapers and doing feedings and taking his sleep shifts and all those things. I realized that a lot of women I know, even in our generation, weren't that fortunate. So if they did have a partner, their partner kind of, they got up, they went to work, and then they came home and still expected the same things that they were getting before the child was born. And it's like, no. Let's be very clear. My husband learned real quick. He traveled a lot. And I worked with our first two. And after our third one was born, we couldn't afford childcare anymore. My check would cover childcare, and that was it. There'd be nothing left. And so why would I go do that? Go knock myself out for 40 to 50 hours a week, and it's just to pay for the daycare and then come home. And, it just didn't make sense. And I had not planned on staying home, but I decided in that time, and I became engaged in other things that I knew would, community organizations and whatnot, that I knew would keep me stimulated, because I knew I couldn't just not have my own thing. I knew it was important for me to make sure I was filled outside of being a mom. But my husband traveled a lot in those early days, and he clearly knew if he'd been gone for 3 or 4 days in a row, he walked in the house, I handed him a kid, I walked out of the house. And it might have been going for a walk, going to get a coffee, going for a drive and listening to my favorite music, whatever it was. When you're a single mom, you don't have that unless you have organized that to come in with a grandmother or a sister or an aunt or a friend. So, I think those things are, does anybody have anything they want to say about that partner piece before we move on to the next question?
I think we joke in my house that my husband still to this day has never changed a diaper, right? And my sons are 35 and 29, and I have a 1 and a 2-year-old grandson, and the man has still never changed a diaper. So,
wow.
I think it's very important to have those conversations. I had the good fortune to be able to change my work schedule, and he worked a lot, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, because we own businesses. So I just felt, okay, this is my job now, but I didn't ask for those breaks. And I think it's so important, whether you're a single mom or whether you're in a partnership, you have to ask for what you need, because if you swallow those needs long enough, you end up becoming resentful of the child and your partner and your friends and everybody around you who can't freaking see that you need a break, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just the most important thing. The most important thing of parenting is just to set the expectations for yourself and for other people.
Yeah.
And I'm insanely jealous that your husband was like he was.
I knew how. Well, it was funny because my friend that I talked about, that she and I had the similar struggles, she was like, what Brady did, that's what you do. Because both of our husbands were youngest. But her husband was a youngest with 3 older sisters who just doted on him like crazy. Drove the parents crazy, like, quit doting on him. But so my friend was like, there will be no doting on you, sir. There will be, let's be very clear. But
Yep.
I think you pointed something, communicating our expectations. We as women so many times want the people around us to be mind readers. Can't you see the angst on my face? Can't you hear the tone of my voice? A lot of times, no. No, they just see you doing all the things. So they just think you must be okay doing all the things. So, and so things we learned. Thanks for that, Kim. Marissa, how about you?
Let's see. I mean, I think that, again, I was blissfully ignorant. And once my daughter was born, I felt like these gender roles suddenly like became live and well in my house, whereas prior I wouldn't have even given a second thought to the idea of gender roles. You know, it's just me and my husband, and we both work, and we're both, you know, I don't know, like just I wouldn't have even thought about it. And then all of a sudden it was like I felt resentful about it. And I think I just wasn't prepared. I just had no idea on how all of that would look. So I definitely, this is very, very common in the work that I do. And I definitely invite the moms that I work with that are overwhelmed and whatnot, and to invite them to divvy up some of the tasks. You know, can he put baby down to bed every night, or the bath, or the feeding, or whatever it is, you know, depending on the stages and stuff, and nursing. And even if they're nursing, it doesn't mean you can't nurse and still hand off baby or whatever.
And pump and all those things.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's relevant. And you know, and if there isn't a partner, we still, okay, let's keep going down the list. Family, friends, neighbors, can you hire out? All of the above. Yeah.
Not being afraid to ask for help. I think that that's something we've learned that we would probably all do differently this go round. And we've probably all told our kids, it's okay to ask for help. Don't ever be afraid to ask a question. Don't ever beat yourself up. Give yourself grace. No, like I said earlier, this is going to be the most beautiful, complex, crazy, wonderful, chaotic thing you've ever done. and that's okay. And all the emotions and feelings that come with it are okay. And if you know you can ask for help and have resources, you're less likely to get to these end points that you don't want to get to, that some of us got to at different stages. You know, so I think the next question is, as the kids were growing up, because all of us, you know, Marissa's got the youngest one, where she's a tween, but the rest of us all have, you know, Rashonda's just gone through her high school graduation with her youngest, and you know, Kim's got grandkids now. Mine are all grown. No, you know, one's married, 2 living their lives into, you know, doing jobs and doing all the things. But talk about as they were growing up, the joys in the different transitions. So Rashonda, we'll start with you.
I think as they grew, the joy was the factor of, at first I used to beat myself up that I had them at the age that I had them, you know, because you always think, I wish I had did this before, you know, this came along. But I was actually glad that I had them when I did. And I became very open and transparent with my kids. Even today, they know I tell them the truth about things. So just having them to be there to talk to, and them to understand, and them to see me, you know, in a different way, just almost like not your friend, because, you know, I mean, but that being that safe space that they can come to and they can talk to. And as your kids get older, I think the relationship begins to build just a little bit more with them. I think their understanding becomes a little bit more open to things. And so that's, to me, it's the joys. And now that they are the age that they are, now it's like, Mom, you know, they seek my attention and you want to hang out with me, which I'm surprised about that. I'm taking it, just to watch movies and things of that nature. But we have a bond, it was hell on wheels, growing up. But, now I'm grateful for the journey. I'm grateful for the moment. And then having learned what I learned, we're trying to push time, just settle in time and let time do its thing. So that's the joy for me.
Yeah. Thank you. Kim, how about you?
I can't tell you there was a time that was, like each milestone, I can go back now because I'm reliving them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I worked so much when my boys were little that there are things I'm watching my grandsons come into that I don't remember my sons doing. Even like this, like one of my grandsons walked on his knees for like 6 months because he just didn't want to get up on his feet, right? And the other, I don't remember those developmental stages. I remember the big joys, right? The first day of school and confirmation and I don't know. Kind of like, I don't know. They're friends now. They were they weren't friends. We weren't friends when they were little. Because I had a mom like that. Joyce, I don't know. There's too many to name. Well, Melissa, I can't. My greatest joy is today. My greatest joy is watching them parent and knowing I didn't break them.
Yeah, honestly, but because you talked to me about, you and I talked about this before, because you and I both have adult children. So we talked about this parenting, and you've mentioned before the joy of knowing that you created good humans.
Yeah.
Like you get to see them out in the world and as good humans. And I would say for me, and I same thing, like I'm like, in spite of me, these are 3 really amazing humans, and that I'm thankful for and proud of. Yeah, absolutely.
We didn't give them everything. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's one of the things is we didn't give them everything. And we always heard this, well, so-and-so and so-and-so has this. And, we had our boundaries and we had punishment and discipline and we had fun. So through it all, I didn't do it wrong. That's Well,
I think that's an important balance to talk about in today's day and age where everything's so available all the time immediately. I read a great article yesterday. I think it was by Dr. Becky, who talks a lot about parenthood. And she's like, let your kids be bored this summer. Let your kids get a little bored and navigate the whining and let them get a little bored so they can, and don't just go in and fill all their time all the time. Let them figure out and learn how to be creative with their time and find their own way to do things. Put boundaries around their screen time so they just don't have this automatic entertainment in front of them all the time. Require them to think a little. That's kind of how they figure out who they are. And they might complain about it, but they'll thank you later for the opportunity. Oops. Did I freeze?
Briefly.
Oh, there I was. Okay, sorry. Love alive. You never know what's going to happen. I'm back. Okay. Yeah. So let them figure that out. So I'm glad you brought up that, we worry so much about keeping them safe. And I think it's important to talk about the importance of like letting them make some decisions and make some mistakes while you're there, as like Rashonda talked about, kind of the safe space they trust. So when they fall, you're there to catch them. Because if you do everything, we had a real mixture as our kids were growing up of helicopter parents versus those that stood back a little. And I remember when I took a job when my oldest, like they were 6th grade, 8th grade freshmen. And I took a new job that was like 45 minutes away from their schools. Like it was in another part of the city that I was commuting to every day. And versus the job I'd had before was like right there in the school district. Like if they forgot something, I was right there, whatever. And so we had this conversation about the fact of like, if you all forget something, you forget something. I am not, dad's working downtown, I'm working out in the valley. We're not going to be able to get it to you. So be very mindful of the night before, the morning of, you have all your things. Because if you don't have all your things, then you just don't have all your things.
Mhm.
And that was there was a couple of bumps that they were, where I got a call at work. I'm like, I can't save you. I can do, I get off at 3:30 and I can meet you at that point. But, between now, call your dad, but probably most likely nobody can save you in this. And it was also good for Brady because that was the first time he had worked closer to the schools than I had. So he got those calls that I talked about all over years. He's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, welcome to my world. You're now the one that's getting the calls because you're 15 to 20 minutes closer to them now than I am. But it was a good lesson for them in accountability and what they were responsible for and little things like that make a difference so that when they do step out of the door, whether it's to college or the military or a trade or a job or whatever, they've had a little bit of, they've learned how when things don't go their way, how to navigate it. Because if they walk out the door and you've never allowed them to make mistakes or have to recover from disappointments, it's going to be very difficult for them to navigate the world around them. So I wanted to elaborate a little bit on that. Thank you, Kim, for that. Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm going to share anything earth-shattering, but my daughter's almost 12, and it's just fun that I want to spend time with her and want to vacation with her versus when she was much smaller. I quite frankly didn't, because it was more work than joy. In fact, a lot of moms will say vacationing with little ones, it's not a vacation. We'll just call it a trip. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So I've definitely graduated from that stage where it is a vacation. And I genuinely want to experience things with her. And it's not to say when she was smaller that we wouldn't find things that were joyful, but it just wasn't the same, storybook, this or that, or even cartoons. I tolerated cartoons, but now I can watch Twilight with my daughter, which isn't like my favorite, but more enjoyable than a cartoon. So that's been fun. I feel like I don't know if this is like a controversial topic, but I will say I feel like my daughter is my friend. We'll see how that changes or not. But that's been nice, like what movies can we watch together, and so that's been cool for me.
Yeah. And I think it's fun to kind of get to see at that age, get to see the world through their eyes and how they're experiencing things and what it is they're seeing that maybe you'd miss if they hadn't brought that up already too. Because I think there is that balance of being that safe space in that relationship, but also and also I'm the parent. So also, if that thing comes up, the answer is going to be no. And, and we can talk about your feelings about it and why we want to give space. We're not going to shut you down, but it's always that balancing act. But it's fun at that age where they're starting to have real opinions and having real, experiences to kind of be able to see the world through their eyes, and also let them know that when X, Y, and Z happens, the world will not come to an end. The sun will come up tomorrow because, and letting them, have those feelings in spaces and places. Yeah. So good. And I think the next question is, what would you tell your younger self as you started going out into this stage of parenthood? What would you tell your younger self? Marissa, we'll start with you.
Oh gosh. I think Rashonda likes that question. What would I tell you? You mean like pre-parenthood?
Yeah.
I think I would craft a kit or a plan I'm trying to think of a more clever name, but like, a really long list. And then I would hand it to her and be like, this is your lifeline. It would include maybe like a schedule that me and my husband could share. It would include maybe a lot of resources, books that really spoke to me. Although there weren't, I had to end up writing a book because I couldn't find the book that really targeted what I was feeling. So I guess I'd hand her my book.
Yeah.
But I think it would be like a preparedness list or kit or something, and a bottle of Prozac.
And I think also, but I think it's important too to point out Marissa's a therapist, and she still and knows all the tools and had all the training and still ran into these things. So it goes to show, like, it doesn't pick people, it goes for everybody, regardless of what your background is.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Rashonda, how about you?
Oh, I would tell myself 3 things. First of all, girl, find yourself. Because I feel like, my self-esteem was shot. Sit down and shut up. Because like I said, earlier, we speak things that we're not, really don't have the whole knowledge of or whatever.
Yeah.
And because I didn't find myself, I didn't know who I was, I ended up getting into a marriage that I didn't need to be in, which is why I was a single mom, because, we divorced when she was 2. So, it's like, find yourself. And I feel like, now at 46, I'm just finding myself. But I wish I had did that a long time ago, and maybe things would have been a little bit different. I wouldn't have had kids until maybe I was 30. I probably wouldn't have had them at all. So, I mean, it's just, it would have been Rashonda's life and what she wants and when she wants to do it and how she wants to do it. But those 3 things, I think, would have carried my younger self into, what she wants.
Just so you being healthier with yourself, because when you're healthier with yourself, you're healthier for everybody else too. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Well, I can relate to that wholeheartedly. I think for me, it's like, get to know yourself, give yourself grace. Don't be afraid to go in and do the work as you're going along. Just own that you're going to mess this up. Because for me, my examples were 2 parents who were very emotionally not in touch with their own emotions, had a lot of unprocessed trauma that carried into parenting us. So it was a very emotionally volatile space growing up. I was very mindful of the things I wanted to do differently, but there were a lot of things that came up for me as I was parenting that were a carryover from what I experienced, that it was not how I wanted to be as a parent, but it just kind of came out because I didn't know differently and didn't have resources. So there's a little bit of reckoning now of realizing, gosh, there's some things I really missed the boat in, but also given where I was at, I did do the best I could. And so I can both own that I missed the mark on some things, but also give myself grace on the fact that I never came from anywhere but a position of love. It just didn't always come out the way it needed to for that kid, because I think it's important to mention too, when you have, 3 of the 4 of us here have more than one child. I had 3 daughters. They are 3 completely different individuals. They don't even, although my middle one and younger one probably look more alike, but as kids growing up, they did not look alike. They all had their own look. They didn't look distinctly like one or the other, although my second one looks so much like her grandmother, my husband's mother. Like, you get out pictures of them at the same ages, and it's startling how much they resemble each other. So you never know how those genetics are going to work out. But I always used to joke about the fact that Brady and I had all 3 of these children together. I'm the mother, he's the father. I mean, and yet they all had their own. So that was kind of a joke growing up, because a lot of sisters, especially if they're girls or boys or whatever, they'll all look alike in some way. and mine did not. So that was very interesting, but they also had very different personalities. So as they got to these different stages, I couldn't parent them the same. Like what one would respond to, the other one wouldn't. And then having one that was natured completely differently than me in a ton of ways was like, it was hard, because it's like, I don't know what to do here. And so instead of understanding that was okay, and to voice it out loud and ask for help and get resources, I just kind of fumbled my way through it. And I wish I would have been like, there's some triggers coming up here for me in my frustration here that maybe I need to get a little more help on. And so just, being open with that and accountable for that, and also being a safe space to land now as they come to me with adults with concerns. My parents could not process the fact that they did the best they could and also caused harm in the process because of where they were. And I learned early on, I will be the parent, no matter how painful it is, to my adult children, that if they come to me with like, this really worked and this I'm struggling with, that I will be able to own that with love and accountability and not be defensive and just own it. But it's hard. So owning that it's also hard, but when you get them in those different stages and places, you're just like, well, that didn't work with her. Now what do we do? So I think that a lot. The other thing is, anybody have any questions or comments from what you all have heard from each other?
I would say another thing that I would tell myself is not to be succumbed by society pressure. Being 21, you have to, your mom, you haven't had a grandchild yet. You haven't paid, family, you should be married by now. You should, not succumbing to that, and just kind of having my own, doing my own thing instead of listening to those noises, because those noises will allow you to get into things that you probably shouldn't have even, you weren't ready for, you shouldn't have gotten into. So that's another thing. But Kim said something earlier that when she was saying about the mess ups, my thing is that I really thought my children were going to be messed up, because I did raise them in a single household, and the guy's family, was like, well, you got to have a dad in the home, kids they need a father, and that type of stuff. And so I thought something was going on with my kids because they didn't have that structure. But they have college degrees. One just graduated. One will be graduating in 2 years with a bachelor's, so it's like, and they're not, they don't have small kids. I think that was the thing growing up was, my mom got pregnant at 16, so she's going to get pregnant at 16, and this is going, no, their generational curse stopped. So, I'm grateful to God for, just the journey itself. It was lonely, but I knew where my help came from, and it was from him. And so I'm grateful for that.
Kim, how about you? What would you tell your younger self?
I thought I read all the books, right? Like I said before, I thought I had it all figured out. And I would tell my younger self it's okay to change course. I bought the cloth diapers, and I did I was going to make the baby food, and, all the things. And it just didn't fit. I tried. It didn't work. The substitute wasn't wrong. Or it's okay to course correct is what I would tell myself. Because I struggled for a long time to be the model, right? And and I would also tell my younger self I have never felt like this before. I'm going to feel greater love and greater hurt and greater anger and greater everything, and that was the thing that I told my sons. Like, you have no idea how much you're going to feel in the for the rest of your life, the moment you have a child. And it's not all good. I mean, everything's
Mhm.
amplified once that baby comes.
Yeah.
And it, I like Marissa spoke earlier, postpartum depression. If you have postpartum depression, it's okay. But if you're just angry, don't try to label it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Talk to someone, get help, do the thing, right? Just do the
Mhm.
thing that you need to do to be good in your own skin and be the best parent you can be. Right?
Yeah.
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 So good. So, any thoughts from for those of you that have multiples? Any thoughts you want to share about kids learning and realizing that each kid is different, and you got to make sure you show up for them in the way that fits them, and it's not a cookie cutter thing. Because I don't think before having kids, it was like there was this idea that if you have boys, it'll be this way. If you have girls, it'll be this way. There was no conversation or nuance about anything because none of those things were true. Right? Any thoughts on that?
Well, my boys are from different dads, 2 different marriages. They're 7 years apart. So I didn't have a lot of trouble in the comparison factor.
Yeah.
The little one wanted to be like the big one,
Mhm.
because he's my older brother.
Mhm.
But there was no gender. I mean, like, I taught my boys everything I could teach them. They cook, they
Yeah.
clean, they do laundry. Um, they yeah, we learned it all because I didn't want them to go out. I worked hard in my home, and
Mhm.
I love every moment of that, but I wanted my sons to do more inside the home. My husband takes care of the outside, Kim takes care of the inside. I wanted my boys to be a little bit more engaged in what happened in parenting and in caring for the home. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Rashonda, how about you?
I think I had a boy and a girl. So for me, it was I didn't want to do my daughter like I had seen with my mom, struggling silently with
Mm.
trying to do everything, being this independent and not having somebody there to kind of help her. So with my daughter, it was more of understanding and teaching my son this is how you treat a lady, and
Mm.
getting them to kind of role play with one another so they'll know how when they get into relationships or get married or whatever, he'll know how to treat a wife, she'll know how to treat a husband. And so I would tell him, go open the door, for your sister. At first it was like, I don't get that. I'm not opening the door for her, but but I'm like, open the door for her. And then she was like, well, I don't need him to open the door. I can open my own door. I said, see, this is what we need to work on. It's just letting him do it, because sometimes I think as women, because we grow up with this independent, spirit. It's, I don't need a man to do anything for me. Then he'll feel like, well, what's my use here? So
Mhm.
for me, it was kind of teaching my children kind of those type of roles.
Mhm.
That, hey, son, you do have a role in this, in the house. Hey, my daughter, Victoria, step back and let the man do some things. You don't have to be so independent and do it all, because then he's going to feel like he doesn't have a place. And then with my son, you do have a place. This is what, you get married, this is what the woman is going to expect, but I need you to. So it's those types of things,
Yeah.
So
for
good.
me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Learning how to support each other. I mean, I think that is such an important thing. I think the other thing I would say is if you do have a partner, have conversations before the babies come
Yeah.
of expectations. And if you don't have a partner, get yourself a tribe of support
Mhm.
and set that up in advance of, on can you come over on Fridays so that I can, go for a walk and meet my friend for lunch, or can you, come over every other morning so I can jump in the shower. Um can those kind, to put some things in with, and just get expectations communicated and out there, even if you think, because I think Marissa said it, pointed out so well, when it's just the two of you and you're both working and doing your thing, things tend to kind of roll. I mean, there's
Mhm.
not a lot of reason for these other things to come up. You all
Right.
kind of help and support each other do things because you're both working, you're both, all of a sudden there's a shift. And it's like, make sure that there's communication about what the expectations are when the shift happens. And don't wait to be in the middle of, because when you're in the middle of it and you're tired and you're exhausted and you're not getting what you need and you don't understand why your hormones are going wild, that's a difficult time to have a balanced, tempered conversation about these things when you're in it. So getting ahead of it. And then I think as they grow into adults, when you're parenting adult children, I've learned to kind of not assume they need me to show up a certain way. Like, I was thinking about this. Does that feel supportive to you? Versus me just running in and trying to operate in a way that maybe I would have 5 or 10 years ago, or not operating, not engaging in a way that maybe they want me to engage. And all three of them need me to do that in a different way, want me to do that in a different way based on those personalities. So really open communication about those expectations as they go into adulthood. Marissa, as having one child, is there anything you've learned about being the mom of an only child that you'd like to share?
I love it. I mean, I don't know. I think I had to fight back maybe some, I guess, stigma or, the only child syndrome or whatever. And yeah, it wasn't the easiest of decisions, but it works for me. There's just so many things I love about it. I don't know how much, even though my story is about recovering from like the shit storm that went through my house the day my daughter came home. Thank you for laughing, Rashonda. I couldn't even imagine if I had went on to have another one. Mm-hmm. I think I'm so glad that I'm in this place now and that I recovered and that I'm yeah. And it's still, my daughter's about to turn 12, and yes, it's so much easier, but now there's this push-pull of her, entering into being a teenager. And I can't wrap my head around having more than one. I just can't. And Rashonda, I want to say I love that you are embracing, I think, like femininity and masculinity. I think that feminism in some ways hurt us. Like in some ways I get equality. I want choice 100%. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think it kind of screwed us to step into femininity and to receive. So Rashonda, I love what you're doing with what I hear is just flourishing your son's masculinity and for your daughter to receive. So great job.
Yeah. I think, there was a lot of head nodding when you were talking about that because it is a balance. But you said something, Marissa, and Kim said it earlier too, about it works for me. Figuring out what works for you and honoring that. And also Rashonda mentioned it too about the societal expectations and the importance of getting to know you and so that you can live to that and that's going to help you show up in the healthiest, most authentic way as well when you honor you. And because then it takes away the defensiveness, the irritability, the martyrdom. I mean, you're going to have your hard days. Parenting is like no other thing you'll ever do, but also that you're honoring yourself in it. And not abandoning yourself also goes for when you're a parent. Asking for help, taking breaks. I remember the first time I went to speak at a women's retreat when my kids were all kind of elementary to middle school in range. And I was going for the weekend and my husband was going to be with them to get them to all the things over the weekend, all that stuff. And it was the first time I'd left him when they were so active. Like he'd had them a lot before in younger stages. I'd gone to help friends move when they were younger, all those things. They loved it because dad was fun. He'd take them to the movies. They'd have popcorn for dinner. It was, and I just, they still talk about all those. The first time I went to help a friend when she'd moved to Florida with her two very little babies. and Dad had the rockin' fun weekend where they went to movies every day and ate popcorn all weekend.
Nice.
and everybody lived. But as they got older, they had more activities, and I was just like, and my husband and even, he's like, go. The girls are going to remember you did this. What kind of an example is it that you're setting that you can still go have your own life? Go fill your cup. Go do this thing that's honoring you. We'll all be fine. And so, continuing to not abandon yourself and not let the mom guilt, don't let the mom guilt get in the way of you living your life and being you. And that was something too that I think was really important for me to learn is my kids went to all the things. I did not stop living my life when my kids came. My oldest was at a college football game when she was 11 days old. There were people horrified looking around at me. She was fine. That kid she's 30 years old. She can sleep anywhere to this day. They're very adaptable. I could have just chosen to stay home for the first 3 to 6 months and not go out anywhere, and would have been the worst mom in the world because I wouldn't have been honoring myself. And of course, you have to take what comes with that. But yeah, you don't have to stop living your life and live in a way that feels honoring to you. And they will get the naps, they will get the feedings, and they'll be really, really able to acclimate to things when you are not afraid, when you don't become a shut-in. I think it's really important to not become a shut-in out of fear. And it's hard. Sometimes when they're born during times of year where there's lots of viruses and RSV, you got to be mindful of who you're. I mean, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm not throwing safety out the door, but you don't have to just drop everything and quit living your life. I think that's something that's really important too. And then a ton of grace and being willing to own what you messed up on, but not missing the wins along the way as well. And recognizing where these are some breaks and some generational traumas and narratives that moving forward are going to be healthier and better for my kids because we took these steps and now they're seeing what they want better and they're taking these steps. Because I think the last thing, as parenting 3 daughters, there's a lot of things that I missed along the way. But the one thing I was very clear with them about, going back to societal expectations, is you don't have to be a mom and you don't have to get married to have value. If it works out for you and if that is what you want in life, and the same for boys, you don't have to become a husband and a father to have value. If that works out for you and feels authentic for you and aligns for you, absolutely. But don't believe the lie that you're less valuable, less worthy, less lovable, have less to give if those are not routes that feel authentic and natural or work out for you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Let's let you all share your resources and a last parting thought. Kim, we'll start with you.
My resources, you can find me everywhere at Kim Mosiman, and that's Mosiman. I've written 3 books, all for different things. Reflections of Joy is my journey back to loving myself after middle age hit. My owner's manual is a companion journal, and then I've also written a workbook for writers who are getting ready to launch their books. And I'm spend most of my time on Instagram. So if you want to find me there. The final thing I would say is do yourself. Do you, right? Don't compare yourself to anyone else. You have to work with your kids and your partner, or just, make it work for you. And if anybody has anything to say about it, just politely tell them to mind their own business.
I love that so much. You're also the co-host of a new podcast.
I am. I forget about that. It's 1 episode old with my good friend Rachel Lavin, who Melissa introduced me to. We just started the Whole Woman podcast, available currently only on YouTube. And we just talk about all the things. Mm-hmm. Take your pick. Yeah. We might talk about it that week. I don't know. So
yeah. Go check it out. It's good stuff. All right, Marissa, how about you?
Yeah, so my handle is at Postpartum Happiness. That's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And then my website is postpartumhappiness.com. And there's other resources there. And I would say, let's see, final thoughts. I guess, yeah, just in parenthood that, giving permission. It's okay to have an identity crisis and realize, oh my gosh, this is not what I thought it was, and that there you're not alone, and there is support available, and that doesn't mean that you're broken or wrong. Just probably means you're feeling a little isolated or alone.
Yeah.
And I definitely invite to reach out.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, Rashonda, how about you?
I'm on TikTok mostly. I have IG and Facebook, but TikTok mostly. It's at Inspo with Ro. I have 2 podcasts, the Girlfriend's Girlfriend podcast and Matters of the Heart with Roshonda. The Girlfriend's Girlfriend podcast is monthly. It's the 3rd Monday of every month. And it's my newest one, just came out in October. So, we just talk about all things girlfriend. I'm a personal development coach. So, of course, I'm trying to help women be their best selves, put expiration dates on the past and just be the most confident woman that they can be. And I love stories. So, of course, I always come with something. I have many stories in my life that I can talk about. So, yeah, we'll just learn from that. But if I could leave a thought, and it was don't be weary and well-doing with your kids. If you plant the seed, now you'll see how beautifully it will sprout and grow later. And right now it's just planting the seeds, and that's what we're doing. You're not going to see them sprout like right away, but eventually they will, and then you'll see the fruits of your labor be manifested. So, but don't be weary in well doing, because you can be, but don't.
Yeah. Oh, that was good. Thank you, Rashonda. And Rashonda's, her girlfriend's podcast really started out. Rashonda's everybody's girlfriend, and so she's like, wait a minute, who's filling the girlfriend? Who's everybody's girlfriend's cup? So I love that she's speaking to that and seeing that in herself. So that's like my favorite new thing that you're doing. I think that's so great. I love that so much. And so thank you all for being with me today. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for how you show up in the world, how you support women, how you love women, how you create safe spaces for them to have these conversations that we didn't feel like we could have. So now we're here providing spaces so that these women now know. And this is just another example of that. And so we hope, listeners, that you found this resourceful and supportive. All these fine women's resources are going to be in the show notes here shortly. So check back for that. They've also been on many other things with us. So you can find them throughout our website at embracinglayers.com in past panels and all that. But thank you, ladies, so much for being with me today.
Thank you.
All right. Take good care, everyone. We'll be back next Monday with an open topic panel. That means anything goes. Come back here and join us next Monday. But take good care and have a great week.